Alright, welcome back to the second video of the module. In the last video, we got started with observability monitoring. We saw how you can use OpenTelemetry and Yager to gauge your application, to see the logs, traces, and spans of your application running in a distributed world. So that was for an application running on any cloud. So you could use OpenTelemetry and a tracing tool like Yager, Zipkin, Prometheus for your application. Now, if you're specifically coming from a cloud like Azure, Microsoft Azure, and you don't want to use OpenTelemetry or the Yager, you want something inbuilt. You don't want to spend extra time or extra skill sets on learning those new set of skills. So what you could do is you could just use Azure Application Insight, which does a similar job of extensible application performance management for developers and DevOps professional to monitor and your live application. It will detect performance anomalies and include powerful analytics tool to help you diagnose your application and trace it just like you did it for your open telemetry and with Yager. It supports majority of the application like .NET, Node.js, Java, Python based application. So few of the downsides are if you're coming from a Go background, if you have your application is running on Go, you won't be able to use App Insights as of now when we are recording this video. We don't know about the future, so in those scenarios you'll have to switch to some other sort of application observability tool. So you can see that you have something called as fail request, response time, server request, availability. These are few of the most popular metrics which you want to see every time of the day, where your users are, see which pages perform best, and if your responses are kind of going high, and there are certain more number of requests, and perhaps you want to resource your problem. So how does application insights work? So it uses an instrumentation key, and this instrumentation key is very critical. It sits as a small instrumentation package as an SDK in your application. Let's suppose you're running a Python app, and your application is there, and you want to install those SDK, the application inside SDK, and you want to use this instrumentation key in your application and enable insights using the agent for whichever language it supports. The instrumentation actually, which is sitting in your application, monitors your app regularly and detects and directs the telemetry data to your Azure, and this is how your telemetry data looks like. So if you go to the application map, this will give you some sort of anomaly, like a dependency graph which you have seen with the open telemetry. This kind of gives you that, okay, this is how your requests are going from one instance to another, and gives you a dependency that, okay, this is how your request kind of goes from one services to another. You've got live metrics which is coming right from your application, that how many number of requests have failed, what are the customer details, which were the slowest page, which browser people are using, dependency call, how many requests were going out, and you could have transaction search and all those features as well. You could use failures as well, and then you could see what were the top three response codes, which were the top three. You could generate custom metrics as well beyond what Azure gives you. And you have something called as availability as well. So if you're coming from system engineering background and have used Nagios and Zabbix to configure them and then use alerting system on that, rather than that, Azure kind of gives you the feature to perform ping test for any of your public application. You could just use, so right now you see that I've already doing a test for a site called www.scaleupinfra.com, and I'm doing a ping test after every 5 minutes from these locations. I want to make sure that Azure to automatically ping this particular website, it has to be public, mind you, and then I want to see that, okay, if the success code is 200, that should be considered as a success code. Then you can configure alerts as well. And if you see that I've already started getting some errors, if there are failed count, their ping test has taken some time, and how much time did it take to response this get the response from the site. I have got the count of my field as well, and I get some details that okay, availability. You get these traces kind of that the DNS lookup has failed for www.scaleupinfra, and you get some additional information that it was ran from central US. This is the source ID, and this is the application side name, and then the message the remote name scaleupinfra.com could not be resolved. And then you kind of get the tracing right from here. That's the span which we talked about, and then you get multiple other matrices as well. And then you can export and analyze these logs later if needed be. You could just create a new one, www. probably google.com. Obviously we don't own this one, but this is how you kind of um, configure the ping test for your public application, and then you create an Google ping test, and then you start creating it, and then you could just start monitoring the ping test for your application as well. And then you've got alerts and all as well. So this is pretty cool and very easy to get started with if you're coming from Microsoft Azure background. If your application is hosted on Azure and it's one of the supported platform for application inside, you don't have to install anything, just an SDK which binds with your application. No setup, nothing, and all you need is an Azure account or an application sitting on any of your Azure platform. Even if it's not sitting on Azure, then even then you can use it, even if it's sitting on some hybrid platform. You could utilize App Insight and start visualizing your traces, metrics, and take actions on them. It's also beneficial for your analytics, just like Google Analytics. You want to see that from which geographical region your users are coming from, whether they are using mobile apps or browser or web, and all those cool metrics. All right, I hope this was informative. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.